In my past life, my husband faked his death to trick me into drinking poison and joining him in death. I was rushed to the ICU but couldn't be saved. Meanwhile, he just had his stomach pumped and was right as rain. At the funeral, he wept bitterly before my grave. Darling, why won't you let me come with you? Why did you swap my medicine for cough syrup? Everyone comforted him, praising him as a rare and wonderful man. Yet the very next day, he was locked in a passionate embrace with his mistress on the very bed we had shared for 3 years. My husband whispered tenderly, "Darling, that woman is dead. We can finally be together in the open. The fortune she left behind is enough for us to live comfortably for the rest of our lives." When I opened my eyes again, I had gone back to the day my husband tricked me into drinking the poison. "Darling, I've done all I can. I can't stay with you any longer, but I'm so unwilling to go. I just can't bear to leave you. Seeing you in such pain every day breaks my heart. I know it's just as hard for you to let me go." My husband took my hand and kissed the back of it tenderly. "My love, come with me. Let's walk the road to the afterlife together and remain husband and wife. Will you?" The familiar, gentle voice struck me like a sudden alarm bell, instantly snapping me out of my daze. I bit my lower lip hard and scanned the room. On the nightstand, 2 glasses of dark red liquid stung my eyes. I took 2 deep breaths. Only then did I have to accept the absurd reality. I had actually been reborn. In my past life, my husband was diagnosed with mid to late stage liver cancer, and the prognosis was grim. Upon learning of his condition, I was utterly heartbroken and emotionally devastated, eventually developing severe depression. Under the dual assault of his emotional manipulation and my deepening depression before his passing, in a daze, I picked up the poison before me and drank it all in one go. I wanted to follow my husband, Jiang Yan, to the grave, but then the poison took effect, and I was in excruciating agony. Yet he shed his feeble, dying act, poured himself a glass of red wine, and celebrated. He mercilessly mocked me for being as stupid as a pig. 6 months had passed, and I still hadn't even realized he was faking his illness. It wasn't until I was foaming at the mouth, my pupils dilating, that he finally put on a show of calling an ambulance for me. In the ICU, I endured the torment of every possible resuscitation method, yet still succumbed. He just had his stomach pumped and walked away without a scratch. The day after I was buried, he was already tangled up with his mistress in the very bed we had shared for 3 years. He whispered passionately, "Darling, now that Wu Yu is gone, we can finally be together out in the open. The fortune she left behind is enough for us to live in comfort for the rest of our lives." Painful memories nearly drowned out all my reason. I dug my nails into my palms until they bled, just to keep myself from tearing him limb from limb. He could only glare in fury at the emaciated Jiang Yan before him, yet he stared fixedly at the 2 cups of dark red liquid and continued, "Darling, do you remember drinking the ceremonial wine at our wedding? Drink this, and we can be husband and wife for all eternity in the underworld. Given a second chance at life, I won't be fooled by your deceit again." I swore a silent vow. "In my past life, you faked your death to trick me into following you to the grave. This time, I'll make your fake death a reality." Seeing my prolonged silence, Jiang Yan frowned slightly. He put on an act of lovesick vulnerability and continued his manipulative spiel. "Darling, don't you want us to share a blanket in life and a grave in death? Like hell I want to be buried with you." I was seething with hatred, wishing I could just pry his mouth open and pour the poison down his throat right then and there. Yet on the surface, I feigned an expression of utter agony. Life is a stage, everyone has to put on a performance now and then. I sat down on the edge of the bed and, fighting back my disgust, took his hand in mine. "Of course I remember. Our wedding day was the happiest moment of my life." With that, I turned, picked up the poisoned wine that was meant for me, and handed it to him. With a nudge of my finger, I slid his glass across to the other side of the table. "My love, whether you live or die, I will stay by your side. I will never leave you." He glanced at the nightstand, a look of satisfaction spreading across his face. "Darling, you're the best. Even if I were to die right now, I'd die happy." I lay down beside him, picked up my glass, and clinked it against his. "Sweetheart, cheers. I'd be happy to die in your arms too." A triumphant smile flickered across Jiang Yan's face as he swiftly raised his glass and downed its contents in one gulp. Only after I was certain he had swallowed the poison did I feel at ease to finish my own cough syrup. The very next second, Jiang Yan sensed something was wrong. The medicine he drank was bitter. He bolted upright, his gaze fixed on me with murderous intent. I clung desperately to his waist, refusing to let him go. "Honey, where are you going? Jiang Yan strictly controlled his diet to feign illness, his already pale face drained completely of color, his eyes filled with terror, his voice trembled. It's so bitter, I need some water. I looked at him as if he were a fool. Bitter, mine is sweet. Jiang Yan was on the verge of tears. To save himself, he had to admit that what we were drinking was different. He quickly backtracked. I misspoke. It's too sweet, you know I don't like sweet things. I still held on to his waist, refusing to let him go. He was so frantic that tears welled up in his eyes as he frantically lifted the pillow, searching for his phone, but he'd forgotten. He had already drained the phone's battery, and he'd even snapped the charging cable. Last night, in the dead of night, he insisted on cleaning the fish tank and accidentally dropped my phone into the water. I haven't had a chance to get it fixed. Now that I think about it, it was all to delay calling an ambulance when the poison took effect. I pressed against his back, trying to soothe him. Darling, it must be because you're weaker. Your body is reacting first and playing tricks on you. Just hold on a little longer. The pain will fade if you can just endure it. Hold me, my love, I'll be with you soon. Jiang Yan desperately pried my hands away. His whole body was trembling as he turned to look at me, pleading, honey, quick. Call an ambulance for me. I looked at him, puzzled. Why, did you change your mind? You don't want to die anymore. But you have cancer, you're going to die sooner or later. To keep you company, I took the poison too. Jiang Yan was speechless with anguish. He shoved me away and bolted for the bathroom. Immediately after, I heard him retching violently. He was in there for a full 5 minutes, probably without throwing up. He furiously cursed with a string of expletives. He stumbled out, a flush of color returning to his face, and shook my shoulders like a madman. Call an ambulance, call an ambulance. With that, he curled up on the floor in agony. No sooner had I managed, with great effort, to move Jiang Yan onto the bed than the doorbell rang. A faint smile touched my lips. Perfect timing. I didn't go to answer the door right away. Instead, I dashed to the bathroom and lightly dabbed my lips with my rose-red lipstick, to create the illusion of poisoning. I opened the door, clutching my chest with a pained grimace on my face. When my mother-in-law saw it was me who answered, she was utterly taken aback. Only after seeing my expression did they quietly let out a sigh of relief. In my past life, my mother-in-law arrived at this exact time as well, but it was her son, Jiang Yan, who answered the door for her. She had come to deliver some local specialties from our hometown. To my dying day, I was never sure if her visit was a coincidence. It was all premeditated. I only remember that Jiang Yan's last call this morning was to his mother. Jiang Yan had timed his feigned illness perfectly. He started getting sick right as the weather turned cooler in August. During his treatment, he voluntarily shaved his head. He bundled up in thick layers of clothing and wouldn't let me touch him. His reason was that he was afraid seeing it would upset me. He also forbade me from telling anyone about his illness, because he didn't want people to look at him differently. On his deathbed, he emotionally manipulated me into committing suicide for him. After I'm gone, they'll claim I took my own life because I couldn't bear the torment of depression. Jiang Yan, out of profound love and loyalty, vowed to die with me. I couldn't bear it, so I secretly swapped his poison for cough syrup. Everyone would praise him for being a good man, while blaming me for being overly sensitive and not valuing my own life. Where's my precious son? Is he feeling any better? My mother-in-law barged in, bumping my shoulder with hers, looking down her nose at me. Jiang Yan and I have been married for 3 years without having a child, which has caused my mother-in-law to hold a serious grudge against me. I feigned a couple of coughs and replied weakly, he's lying down inside, Mom. You came at the perfect time, let me use your phone. Jiang Yan just said he's not feeling well and asked me to call an ambulance for him. My mother-in-law carelessly tossed a sack of local specialties on the floor and hurried to the bedroom to call for Jiang Yan. Jiang Yan lay with his back to her and didn't respond. She walked out without showing a hint of panic. My mother-in-law gently closed the bedroom door and shot me a glance. My son is sleeping soundly. What's the point of calling an ambulance? I deliberately clutched my stomach and tried to snatch her bag. Mom, I'm not feeling well either. Can I use your phone for a second? My mother-in-law shifted her body away, firmly pushing my hand down with a cold tone. That must be from hunger. I brought Yan's favorite cured bacon. Take a piece out and stew it for his lunch. Mom, I really don't feel well. My mother-in-law acted as if she hadn't heard a thing. Just sitting on the sofa scrolling through short videos on her phone, her attitude made me suspect that she was in on Jiang Yan's plan to fake his death. Back then, I was naive enough to believe she had actually come to visit us. Clutching my stomach, I ran for the bathroom, shouting as I went, "Mom, I've got a stomachache. You'll have to fend for yourself." My mother-in-law watched me with a gleeful smile, probably thinking the poison was taking effect. "Laugh it up, call an ambulance now. And your son might still make it, any later, and not even a god could save him." I came out of the bathroom and went back to the bedroom. If you looked closely, you could see Jiang Yan's body trembling slightly. In my past life, I was still conscious right up until they wheeled me into the emergency room. I can feel the pain in my body, I can hear people talking, but I can't move a muscle, I can't speak. Leaning over the headboard, I wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and let out a soft, mocking laugh. "My dear husband, I know you can hear me. It must be awful, isn't it? I'd call an ambulance for you, but your mother won't allow it. What can I do? I know you're faking it. I know this whole playing dead act is to get rid of me, take all our money, and run off with your mother and your little mistress. Too bad for you. I switched your syrup. Your fake death is about to become very, very real. You must be wondering how I know all this. Well, I have no intention of telling you. Just know that everything you're suffering now is exactly what you deserve. Don't worry, I won't let your mother or your lover off the hook either. This is all payback for what you owe me." Jiang Yan let out a foul, labored breath through his mouth. 2 lines of tears streamed from the corners of his eyes. I gently wiped him dry. "Don't worry, I won't let you die that easily. I'll call an ambulance right now." I suddenly let out a scream. Hearing the noise, my mother-in-law came running over. "What's all the shouting about? Keep your voice down, you'll wake my son." I pointed at Jiang Yan, my hand trembling uncontrollably. Mom, Jiang Yan, he's foaming at the mouth." Only then did my mother-in-law turn Jiang Yan over to get a proper look at his face. Jiang Yan had already gone into shock, unable to speak, yet his face was contorted in agony. The mother-in-law showed no sign of panic or alarm. Instead, she looked uncertainly from her son to me. She glanced from me to her son again, a doubt stirring in her mind. "But he's sleeping just fine, even now." My mother-in-law still refuses to give up on their fake death plan. "Oh, she's just waiting for the poison to take effect on me." I was beside myself with anxiety. "Mom, let's just take Jiang Yan to the hospital. Even if he's going to pass, at least let him suffer less." My mother-in-law shot me an annoyed glare and hesitantly pulled out her phone. "I think I'll call Dr. Lan and ask her." A faint, cold smile flickered across my face, almost imperceptibly. Besides my mother-in-law and me, there was one other person who knew about Jiang Yan's illness. That was his mistress, the one my mother-in-law referred to as Dr. Lan Kiki. I never imagined that even my mother-in-law, who has lived in the countryside for years, knew of Lan Kiki's existence. "If you start this, don't blame me for finishing it. I'm going to make them watch Jiang Yan die before their very eyes." But there was nothing to be done. Lan Kiki opened a psychotherapy practice near my residential complex. In under 10 minutes, Lan Kiki arrived, wearing her work clothes and with a barely noticeable baby bump. Jiang Yan had always believed the child she was carrying was his. "We've been married for 3 years, and I haven't shown the slightest sign of being pregnant." That was precisely the main reason Jiang Yan faked an illness to trick me into a suicide pact. She looked at me, her brow deeply furrowed. He rushed into the bedroom with practiced haste. The next second, she froze upon seeing Jiang Yan's face turn a dark, purplish hue, one hand clutching her stomach, the other braced against the edge of the bed. She slowly slid down to sit on the floor before it. She shook Jiang Yan frantically, her eyes bloodshot. "How could this happen? How could this happen? Call an ambulance, quick, Jiang Yan's been poisoned." Lan Kiki watched in a frantic panic as she performed rudimentary first aid on Jiang Yan. Only then did the old woman snap into a state of sheer panic. Her mouth hung open, but not a single sound escaped. I was completely stunned, the color draining from my face in an instant. I looked at them in confusion, but I drank it too. "Why am I fine?" Suddenly realizing something, my mother-in-law slapped me across the face. "You useless, barren woman. You're going to be the death of my son." Covering my face, I cried out in hurt and injustice. He was the one who wanted to drink the medicine. What's wrong with me wanting to stay with Jiang Yan? Why did you hit me? My mother-in-law slapped her thigh, wailing loudly as she scrambled over to grab at Jiang Yan. "It's over. It's all over." I snatched the phone she had been clutching so desperately and called an ambulance, but deep down, I knew it was already too late. Jiang Yan. He was beyond saving. "My son, you must be all right." The ambulance rushed Jiang Yan to the ICU for emergency treatment. Just like my past self, they employed every possible resuscitation method and piece of equipment available. At that time, though I was unconscious, a sliver of awareness still remained, being pummeled, intubated, having my stomach pumped, shocked with electricity. The feeling was worse than death itself. The hospital was bustling with people, the perfect moment for me to slip away and cut ties. I slumped against the wall, my eyes fixed on the emergency room door, and wept uncontrollably. Darling, please, you mustn't die. You asked me to die with you, so why did you swap my poison for cough syrup? If I had known you would do this, I would never have agreed to die with you, even if your illness leaves you with little time. As long as you're alive, you are my strength. How am I supposed to go on without you? I was crying my heart out, utterly devastated. In a hospital, where partings and farewells happen at any moment, it's easiest for people to empathize. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw someone in the crowd quietly wiping away tears. I can't believe there are still people willing to die for love these days. That woman must have loved her husband to the very core. Whether her husband loved her that much is another story. Did you not hear her say it was her husband who asked her to die with him? Exactly. Even someone terminally ill has no right to be so heartless as to ask their wife to follow them to the grave. But didn't he swap the poison for syrup? That proves he never truly intended for his wife to die. He must have had his reasons. The onlookers all cast sympathetic glances my way. Just then, the doctor emerged from the emergency room. My mother-in-law and Lon Kiki immediately rushed over to him. Shoving me, the legitimate wife, aside, Lon Kiki wrung her hands nervously. Doctor, my friend is going to be okay, right? Doctor, is my son alright? Can I go in and see him? The doctor looked at them, shook his head, and sighed wearily. We lost too much time. We did everything we could. I'm so sorry for your loss. The words hit her like a bolt from the blue. Lon Kiki's rigid shoulders slumped instantly. Her body swayed uncontrollably, and she braced herself against the wall to keep from falling. The mother-in-law broke down. Her deeply lined face was a mask of disbelief. She clutched desperately at the doctor, her voice trembling. It can't be. How could my son be dead? You quacks, you killed my son. Give me back my son. The doctor was exasperated by the old woman's unreasonable behavior, but out of sympathy for her grief over losing her child, he patiently explained. Mom, I shouted, once again drawing the attention of everyone passing by. If you hadn't stopped me from calling an ambulance, my husband could have been saved. You killed Jiang Yen, you killed your own son. Tears streamed down the old woman's face as she slowly, painfully turned her head. Casting all pretense aside, she lunged forward and slapped me hard across the face. That's a damn lie. My son didn't have to die. You forced my son to drink that poison. You're the one who killed him. Give me back my son's life. My mother-in-law suddenly turned the tables, pinning all the blame on me. But I won't let her wicked scheme succeed this time. I covered my face and retorted, I didn't. I love Jiang Yen. Why would I force him to take poison? He has liver cancer. You were afraid he'd be a burden, so you wanted him dead. You vicious woman. Not only did you fail to give our Jiang family a single child, but you also poisoned my son. Today, I'm going to beat you to death to avenge him. I let out a huge sigh of relief. That foolish old woman's self-incrimination had undoubtedly cleared my name once again. However, more and more onlookers were left utterly bewildered. No way, that's a shocking plot twist. That's murder, isn't it? And I was just feeling sorry for the girl a moment ago. There are no dutiful children by a long sickbed. Taking care of a patient is truly exhausting. I know that from experience. But that's no reason to poison someone. It's hard to say. People are so hard to read. I really can't tell who's telling the truth and who's lying. Before I could even open my mouth to question them, the doctor was the first to freeze, his expression turning serious as he frowned. Are you sure you have the right information? The deceased did not have liver cancer. Aside from the organ failure caused by the poisoning, all other bodily functions were healthy. I grabbed the doctor's arm and wouldn't let go. What? My husband doesn't have liver cancer. But he's been sick for 6 months, getting chemotherapy at the hospital every single month. Look, here's his diagnosis. I pulled out the liver cancer diagnosis report for Jiang Yen from my bag. The doctor took one look, and his expression changed instantly. This is absurd. A piece of paper without even a hospital stamp. What kind of diagnosis report is this supposed to be? I was completely stunned. Mom, did you know Jiang Yen was faking his illness all along? Why would he trick me into dying with him? This morning, I saw his cup was too full. My heart ached for all the suffering he'd endured these past 6 months, so I insisted on taking his cup instead. If we hadn't switched, Wouldn't I be the one dead now? Lost in her grief, the mother-in-law was deaf to the words. She sank to the floor, murmuring vacantly to herself, "That's not what happened. Xiao Yan told me not to get involved no matter what, that he had it all under control. I thought he was just pretending." The situation took another unexpected turn. The onlookers were absolutely gobsmacked. Can someone please make sense of this? What kind of soap opera nonsense is this? Her husband wasn't sick, he was poisoned. Someone must have done it. We can't just take her word for it. But have you considered this? If her husband was perfectly fine, why would he fake an illness, and terminal liver cancer, no less? How was he planning to end the charade without actually dying? Is it possible that her husband had some ulterior motive and wanted to fake his own death? Seeing that they could no longer keep up the pretense, the mother-in-law and Lan Kiki, suppressing their grief, began to disperse the crowd. At that moment, Jiang Yan's body was wheeled out. The mother-in-law held Jiang Yan, weeping as if her heart would break. I felt a wave of profound relief wash over me as I looked at the stiff body beneath the white sheet. It was as if the suffering he had caused me in a past life had suddenly lifted. Seeing her in such utter agony, the onlookers finally dispersed, no longer lingering to watch. My mother-in-law told me to get lost and forbade me from accompanying them to the crematorium. Frankly, I couldn't be bothered to clean up after that scumbag. But when I thought about what might happen next, I knew I wouldn't have peace of mind until I saw him turn to ashes. So, stubbornly, I followed them onto the hearse bound for the crematorium. I didn't leave until I saw Jiang Yan's body being pushed into the cremator. Finally at peace, once home, I packed up all of Jiang Yan's belongings and threw them in the dumpster downstairs. Then, I transferred all the money from our joint account to my parents, labeling it as alimony. Jiang Yan refused to divorce me, opting instead to fake his death to trick me into a lover's suicide, all to get rid of me. So you just want to get your hands on all my money, is that it? If he's going to play dirty, then I won't hold back either. I run a beauty salon, and it brings in a net profit of several million a year. For the past 6 months that Jiang Yan has been sick, he's been taking at least 200,000 from me every month for his medical expenses. Whenever he wanted to try some folk remedy or miracle cure, I'd give him the money, hundreds of thousands, even millions. But he never let me accompany him to his doctor's appointments, afraid I'd hear bad news and be overwhelmed with grief. Since he wasn't actually sick, he must have siphoned off all that money. After he fell ill, I was in a deep depression for a time. The mere thought of a future without him would reduce me to uncontrollable sobs. I loved him so much that I was willing to give up my right to become a mother for him. He never knew that the reason we hadn't conceived in 3 years wasn't because of me, it was because he had oligospermia. To protect his pride, I kept the real reason to myself. I just told him it wasn't meant to be to make him feel better. In just 2 short months, I had driven myself into a depression. I lost all heart for running the beauty salon. And for 6 months it was basically in the red every single month. I never imagined the person I loved so deeply would betray me, fool around with another woman, and even have a child with her. I know that after Jiang Yan's death, my mother-in-law and Lan Kiki won't just let this go. I asked a friend to hook me up with a really sharp lawyer, one who's a real shark in the courtroom. I'm determined to make sure my mother-in-law and Lan Kiki can't squeeze a single penny out of me. And I'm getting back every last cent of the 3 million Jiang Yan swindled from me. All is ready except the east wind. Now it's my turn to pour myself a glass of red wine to celebrate. My gaze wandered, sweeping across the surroundings. Jiang Yan, oh Jiang Yan, do you, like me, harbor such deep resentment that your very soul has returned, so close to victory, yet you stumbled at the final hurdle? You must despise me to your very core. Ha ha ha, I don't know why I'm so happy. That night, whether it was the alcohol or finally letting go of my worries, I managed to sleep soundly without taking my antidepressants. On the 3rd day, my mother-in-law returned, holding Jiang Yan's ashes. After just 2 days, she seemed to have aged a decade, her expression ashen and defeated. The hair that was once half-gray had now turned completely white. Following closely behind was a haggard-looking Lan Kiki. The two supported each other, their heavy dark circles a clear sign they hadn't gotten proper rest in days. Lan Kiki had deliberately chosen to wear a form-fitting knit dress today, even wrapped in her coat. Her small baby bump was unmistakably prominent. I was taken aback for a moment, surprised that my mother-in-law didn't immediately fly into a rage upon seeing me again. Less than 2 minutes after they entered, 2 police officers showed up at the door. So that's how it was. Who called the police? The mother-in-law clutched the urn, her eyes bloodshot. glaring at me with a look that could kill. "Officers, you must bring me justice. This vile woman poisoned my son, made him die in agony. Arrest her now. Poison her too, with the strongest poison there is." The officer's face was as dark as coal. "I mourn my mother-in-law's ignorance for a second. Please don't mind her. Officers, my husband just died. And my mother-in-law can't handle the shock. She's just talking nonsense. It's true my husband was poisoned, but he poisoned himself. It has nothing to do with me." My mother-in-law gritted her teeth and moved to hit me again. "That's a damn lie. If you slander my son again, I'll tear your mouth to shreds. My son had a perfectly good life. Why on earth would he poison himself?" I explained with sincere and measured calm. "Officer, my husband didn't mean to poison himself. He was trying to poison me. By some twist of fate, I ended up drinking his medicine. And that's how I survived. What's more, he faked an illness and deceived me for 6 months. I've done the math. And in that time alone, she took nearly $3 million from me for treatment. This is the fake diagnosis he gave me. And here are the bank transfer records I've compiled. Officer, you must help me find out where all that money went." As I said those last words, my eyes were fixed on my mother-in-law and Lon Keek's faces. A flicker of panic crossed Lon Keek's expression. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by her usual composure. She just pressed her lips tightly together, refusing to say a word. The mother-in-law was in tears, and compared to her story at the hospital the day before yesterday, she had a new version this time. "My son is simply fed up with you, this barren hen. He wants to leave you, but you refuse to divorce him and won't give him his share of the money. That's why he's pretending to be sick. After you found out, you had the heart to poison my son to death, and then you had the gall to slander him, claiming he wanted to harm you. How could you be so cruel? My son must have been blind to marry a venomous woman like you." The mother-in-law shot Lon Kiki a meaningful look. She finally couldn't hold back any longer and spoke up. "Officer, Jiang Yan is my patient. He regularly comes to my practice for psychological counseling. He's mentioned to me on several occasions that his marriage is falling apart and he wants a divorce, but his wife is too domineering. She's threatened that if he divorces her, she'll kill him. I knew they wouldn't let me off the hook easily, but I never imagined they'd join forces to fabricate evidence and frame me." I dug my nails into my palm and forced out a couple of tears. "Officer, I understand that evidence is crucial in your investigations. I can't prove that my husband faked his illness and death to trick me into taking my own life, to get rid of me, but they also have no proof that I was the one who poisoned Jiang Yan. So, if I can prove that bottle of poison was purchased by my husband, does that clear me of suspicion?" The officer nodded. "If it could be proven that the poison was procured and successfully received by Jiang Yan, it would establish my innocence. The problem is, Jiang Yan's phone is missing. I searched every corner of the house, but I couldn't find Jiang Yan's phone. However, my suggestion thoroughly spooked the person who hid the phone. The police officer said that if this case isn't a suicide by poisoning by Jiang Yan, then it involves criminal activity, and we need to go to the police station to give our statements. They thought that by colluding in secret and calling the police, they could have me convicted. Little did they know, they ended up shooting themselves in the foot. If they admit now that Jiang Yan died by suicide from poison, their earlier accusations would constitute slander against me. If they don't admit it, and Jiang Yan's phone is eventually found, it will prove the poison was indeed purchased and used by him privately. Given that he had already faked an illness to swindle money, it raised the suspicion that he might be plotting to harm me. The color drained from both their faces. Even if they hid Jiang Yan's phone, the police could still trace some of his spending records. My mother-in-law didn't understand the power of modern forensic techniques, but Lon Kiki couldn't possibly be unaware. Just as the elderly woman was about to speak, Lon Kiki grabbed her arm and yanked her backward. The old woman stumbled back, nearly dropping the urn she was holding. Lon Kiki hurriedly caught her and said anxiously, "Auntie has a heart condition. She hasn't rested properly these past few days while handling Jiang Yan's funeral arrangements. She's probably having an attack." Catching her meaningful glance, the elderly woman suddenly rolled her eyes back and began to swoon. My heart, it hurts. The medicine, it's in my bag." Lon Kiki hurriedly retrieved a nitroglycerin tablet from the bag and gave it to her. The two police officers helped her to the sofa and laid her down. He took me aside and asked me a few questions in private. When I returned, my mother-in-law had already calmed down. She also changed her story for the police officers. My mother-in-law apologized to the police through gritted teeth. "I'm an old woman, my mind isn't what it used to be, and my memory's failing me. It's possible my little Yen really did take his own life. It had nothing to do with my daughter-in-law. I just couldn't accept my son's death. So I took my grief and anger out on my daughter-in-law. I owe her an apology, daughter-in-law. For the sake of little Yen who just passed, please find it in your heart to forgive your mother, won't you? In the end, they didn't dare confront the truth head-on and chose to settle things in a way that would likely cost them the least. Admitting her son died by suicide must be tearing her heart out. If I had been reborn just a moment sooner, I could have thrown the evidence of her son's crimes right in their faces. At this point, we'll just have to play it by ear. I'm curious to see what other tricks they have up their sleeves. The next moment, Lon Kiki walked over, puffing out her pregnant belly, with tears in her eyes. She called out to me in profound sorrow, "Sister Yaya." A shiver ran down my spine, and I instinctively stepped back to keep a safe distance from her. "Sister Yaya, things have come to this. And I can't keep hiding the truth any longer. I'm not just Brother Zhang's therapist. I'm also the one he loves." I feigned a hurt expression, covering my mouth. "What? Jiang Yan is actually having an affair behind my back." Lon Keek's face flushed crimson in an instant, biting her lower lip in a mix of shame and indignation. "I know you've always loved Brother Jiang deeply, so you must be aware that his greatest wish in life is to have a child of his own. What I'm carrying in my womb is Brother Zhang's only heir. Please don't blame Brother Jiang. He kept it from you because he was afraid of hurting you." I let out a cold laugh. "You faked your death to trick me into following you in suicide because you were afraid I'd be heartbroken. Do you even believe that yourself when you say it?" Lon Kiki glanced awkwardly at the two police officers beside her and continued, "Sister Yaya, please don't make jokes like that anymore. A day as husband and wife creates a bond of 100 days. Brother Jiang is gone now. Sister Yaya. Auntie and I both hope you can accept this child and let him inherit the legacy that is rightfully his." Humph, the fox has finally shown its tail. Mother-in-law also sat up, swallowing all her anger for the sake of getting the inheritance. "Yeah, the child in Keek's belly is the only remaining heir to our Jian family line. For the sake of all the years you've shared as husband and wife with Xiao Yan, please acknowledge this child as your own." I thought it over, softened my stance, and said with a sigh, "If this child is truly Jiang Yan's, then of course I have nothing more to say." My mother-in-law and Lon Kiki exchanged a glance, secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and gave me an ingratiating smile. But, I furrowed my brows and pursed my lips. "Jiang Yan is dead. How can you prove the child in your belly is really his?" "Everything requires proof. Without proper legal documentation, I won't acknowledge it." Lon Kiki gritted her teeth, and the mother-in-law nearly fainted from anger again. Lon Kiki wiped her tears, her voice thick with grievance. "Jiang Gu is the only man I've ever been with. If it's not his child, whose could it possibly be?" "How should I know? You're so empathetic, and you've seen so many male patients." At this point, the only thing that can prove its relation to Jiang Yan is probably a paternity test. My mother-in-law slammed the sofa, her voice rising uncontrollably. "Xiao Yan is nothing but a pile of ashes now. Where on earth do you expect us to get a paternity test done?" I smiled with an air of detached calm. "Well, I guess there's nothing to be done then. Who gave you permission to cremate Jiang Yan without thinking it through first? Jiang Yan's body isn't even cold, and you're already here with a strange, pregnant woman to claim the inheritance. I strongly suspect you're after my money. If I agree to give your mistress's child a share of the estate today, will you be back tomorrow with your fourth and fifth flings, trying to grab more?" My mother-in-law flew into a rage, her face contorted with fury as she glared at me. "Nonsense. If I say it's him, then it's him. He's the only grandson I'll ever acknowledge. Xiao Yan told me before he passed, the child in Keek's belly is his. What's the big deal about a paternity test? I'll take one with him." The officer on the scene reminded them, the test results only hold legal weight if the sample is provided by the individual in question. My mother-in-law finally snapped, huffing and puffing with rage, "I asked you here to settle this fairly, not to gang up on me with her." I was so angry, I could only laugh. Does she think she owns the police station? In the end, with no other options, my mother-in-law had to settle for claiming her rightful share of the inheritance. The moment they stepped through the door, I sent a message to my high-priced, privately retained lawyer. In the time it took for all that back and forth, she had already shown up at my doorstep. Based on the asset information I provided her, a property division agreement has been drafted. The house and the car are my premarital assets. They have absolutely nothing to do with Jiang Yan. After we got married, he asked me to add his name to the property deed, and I readily agreed. However, At my parents' insistence, we signed an additional agreement. If Jiang Yan's personal actions lead to the breakdown of the marriage, he will forfeit any claim to the property. Now, I truly admire my parents' foresight. There isn't a single cent left in Jiang Yan's account. A week ago, he withdrew the money in several transactions, but its final destination remains unknown. He only gives his mother-in-law some money during holidays, so that money most likely went to Lon Kiki. When my mother-in-law heard I only had $38.20 left in my account, she completely lost it. No way. How much do you think that beauty salon of yours makes a month? You think I don't know? You're hiding assets and mistreating the elderly. I'm taking you to court. I made a go-ahead gesture. Go ahead, sue me. 1910 is the price. Take it or leave it. Jiang Yan has funneled a tidy sum from me to you over the years. A person should know when they've had enough. After everything you've done to me, you have the nerve to haggle. My mother-in-law was so furious she was huffing and puffing. I flashed a wide grin and transferred 19 yuan and 10 cents to her. After the police left, my mother-in-law and Lon Kiki stubbornly overstayed their welcome in my home, just to spite me. She even placed the urn on the altar in the living room where I worship the god of wealth. She threatened to hold Jiang Yan's 7th-day memorial ceremony in my home, claiming it was the only way for his soul to rest in peace. On top of that, she demanded I pay her 20,000 yuan a month in support. She said if I didn't pay, she'd camp out in my house forever. I've already stared death in the face once. What do I care about her little monsters and demons? I grabbed the urn and made a dash for the bathroom. How dare you block my path to fortune? You're going straight into the septic tank as scrap. My mother-in-law was so frightened she snatched it away in a hurry, never daring to leave the urn anywhere I could see it again. Later, Lon Kiki left, but my mother-in-law stayed behind, holding her ground in my home. After the security guard threw her out, she just squatted outside my front door, clutching the urn. She's been wandering around the neighborhood like a madwoman, telling everyone I poisoned her son and cheated her out of her inheritance. I neglected my beauty salon for over half a year, which caused a massive loss of clients and nearly drove me into bankruptcy. These days, I've been manning the shop, planning promotional events, and trying to win back my old customers. I was negligent in driving my mother-in-law away. My mother-in-law is domineering but not very bright. She has been waging a protracted guerrilla war against me, slandering me everywhere. Lon Kiki must be the mastermind behind it all. In just a few short days, I became the heartless, cunning, and vicious woman in everyone's eyes. Everyone treats me like I'm a dangerous criminal, going out of their way to avoid me. In private, I went to see Lon Kiki. My personal lawyer has confirmed for me that Jiang Yan did transfer the money to Lon Kiki. I told her to return the 3 million Jiang Yan transferred to her as soon as possible, or I'd have no choice but to take legal action. Lon Kiki completely shed her gentle demeanor from that day, looking down her nose at me with a haughty, contemptuous attitude. She mocked me for having no proof and called me a naive fool with more money than sense. So, I hired a private investigator to look into her again. Later, my mother-in-law gradually shifted the battleground from our residential complex to my beauty salon. The clients I worked so hard to keep would get harassed by her the moment they stepped outside. She's always clutching an urn, ranting and raving about how I'm guilty of causing her son's death. This caused the client I just won back to cut ties with me completely and demand a refund. Even my employees got scared and quit on the spot. Just when I was at my wit's end, I received a set of photos from a private investigator. When I threw the photos of Lon Kiki's intimate rendezvous with another man in front of my mother-in-law, she still refused to believe it. Later, I presented her with Jiang Yan's medical report diagnosing him with oligospermia. It was a fully stamped and authenticated medical examination report. I told her with absolute certainty that the child in Lon Kiki's belly was not Jiang Yan's. My mother-in-law instantly transformed into a rampaging beast. She stormed furiously towards Lon Kiki's psychotherapy clinic. The very next day, a vicious brawl resulting in injury occurred in our precinct. When the police notified me to come to the hospital, my mother-in-law was already in the ICU undergoing emergency treatment. Lon Kiki had also been rushed into the operating room due to a miscarriage. I was received by the same 2 police officers as last time. This time, there was a hint of sympathy in their expressions when they looked at me. So it turns out, my mother-in-law had followed Lon Kiki to her clinic that day to confront her about the child, knowing how domineering and difficult her mother-in-law could be. She just humored her and managed to calm her down, but the very next day, when her mother-in-law brought over some homemade soup, she caught her getting cozy with another man. and that man was the very same one from the photo I had shown her. Furious, the mother-in-law doused them both with a whole bucket of scalding soup. Seeing that her secret was out, Lan Kiki no longer wished to hide it. She bluntly revealed that the other man was her real boyfriend, and that Jiang Yan was merely a tool for her to extract money. The child she was carrying was not Jiang Yan's, but her boyfriend's. Enraged, the mother-in-law kicked her squarely in the stomach. Blood was drawn instantly. Overcome with fury, the mother-in-law spilled the whole truth, how Jiang Yan had faked his death for this woman's sake, tricking me into following him in death, all in a scheme to kill me so they could be together. As she beat her, she lamented how her own son wasn't worth this. He threw away a perfectly good and capable wife, ruining his entire life for a shameless, habitual homewrecker. He even lost his life over it. Lan Kiki's boyfriend grabbed the mother-in-law, lifted her up, and slammed her to the ground. He proceeded to beat her for over 10 minutes. The elderly woman had suffered multiple fractures and was found unconscious when rescued. In the end, she could not be saved. Covered with a white sheet, she was wheeled out of the ICU, just like Jiang Yan. I took Lan Kiki and her boyfriend to court. 3 months later, Lan Kiki was not only required to repay my 3 million debt, he was also sentenced to 5 years in prison for his involvement in the plot to murder me at Jiang Yan's banquet. Her boyfriend was sentenced to life imprisonment for the crime of intentional homicide, and with that, my retribution for the injustices of my past life was finally complete. Now, my life could truly begin. In this life, I will live freely and vibrantly. Story 2. In 1985, armed with nothing but a marriage contract from my father, I journeyed alone to the capital to seek out my nominal fiancé, Xin Jiannan, at the family compound, yet he shut the door in my face, dismissing me as a distant, opportunistic relative who had come crawling now that the Xin family had prospered. He sneered, telling me to go find the accountant for some handout money and to stop cluttering up his doorstep. I glanced down at my own travel-worn, disheveled state. Then at the cultivated elegance of the girl he held, a girl who had returned from studying abroad, and let out a cold, bitter laugh. The next moment, I publicly presented the betrothal letter as proof. Chen Wan, who was in his arms, left in shame and anger, but accidentally got into a car crash and died on the spot. Yet 3 days later, Xin Jiannan agreed to the marriage arrangement. He even used his connections to rush through and stamp our marriage certificate. For 20 years of marriage, I endured 20 years of torment. In my final years, bedridden with severe illness, he ordered the nurse to remove my oxygen tube. After all these years, it's time we settled this. Now, you can go down below and continue atoning for water. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day I found Xin Jiannan. As I listened to his humiliating words, I tore up the marriage contract right then and there. I'll be gone in a moment, so I won't be a bother to you, but later. When I met and connected with Xin Jiannan's sworn enemy, he was driven mad with regret. Hello everyone, and welcome to Whispering Twilight. The scene just now was far from pleasant. After seeing her off, Xin Jiannan turned to me and spoke with palpable intensity. Zhou Yao, why didn't you just stay put in that backwater of yours? What are you even doing here? Looking at his young, handsome face, I felt a slight daze. I can still vividly remember his deranged look from our past life, when he tried to pull my oxygen tube, and now, as if time had rewound, I've truly returned to a time before anything happened, before we started torturing each other. What a cruel twist of fate. I responded with a flat, utterly emotionless tone. I'm only here because my father insisted. Xin Jiannan, if you're not interested, you can call off the engagement. It's a different era now. People choose their own partners. An old betrothal contract like this is easily annulled. Xin Jiannan was taken aback by my words, his face still etched with suspicion, as if he thought I was playing some trick. What are you getting at? You'd just let an opportunity like this slip away. Don't be ridiculous. I just shrugged and held up the betrothal contract, showing it to him. Believe it or not, I can tell you liked that one too. Why not agree to it and set us both free? I must have struck a chord with Xin Jiannan, just as he was about to nod. A woman's voice called out from nearby, Jiannan, what's taking so long? Aren't you coming home? Hearing that voice, I froze for a moment. Across the street, a middle-aged couple who exuded wealth and status approached. The wife wore a mink stole over a cheapao, while the gentleman was dressed in a sharp, well-tailored suit. Looking at Mr. and Mrs. Shen, I felt for the first time as if a lifetime had passed in an instant. Xin Jiannan was taken aback, a flicker of discomfort crossing his face. Father, mother, I was just held up by something. Mrs. Shen, arm in arm with her husband, walked closer. She paused slightly upon seeing me next to Jiannan, then her gaze fell to the marriage certificate in my hand, and she frowned. This marriage contract. The next moment, her gaze snapped toward my face. Xiao Yao, is that you? Looking at their faces, I knew I hadn't managed to escape it in this lifetime either, though, truth be told, I wasn't all that eager to. I could only nod in response. Uncle, Auntie, it's been so long, how have you been? Oh my goodness, it really is you, what a surprise, why didn't you write or send a telegram to let us know you were coming? We're both doing just fine, thank you, Mrs. Shen beamed with delight, warmly taking my hand, while Mr. Shen smiled beside her. Look how you've grown, last time we saw you, you only came up to my waist. I looked at them and spoke with a bitter smile. Yeah. It's been over a decade since we last saw each other. By that count, out of deference to our parents' relationship, I was warmly received by Mr. and Mrs. Shen. As the car pulled into the Shen family's villa in the suburbs, I gazed at the building, momentarily lost in thought. At the dinner table, Shen Jiannan furrowed his brow and spoke abruptly. Zhou Yao, you did this on purpose, didn't you? Just waiting for my parents to be here to back you up. As soon as the words were spoken, the warm, convivial atmosphere at the table instantly froze. Shen's father's face hardened. Shen Jiannan, is this how I taught you to treat a guest? Mrs. Shen was also at the table, putting food on my plate. Xiao Yao, I remember you love spare ribs, don't you? Have some more. Only after serving me did she look at Shen Jiannan and speak up to remind him, especially since this is your fiancé. Upon hearing his mother's words, Shen Jiannan immediately took offense and retorted, what fiancé? I don't acknowledge her, my heart already belongs to another. Mr. Shen snorted dismissively, completely unfazed. Which one? The one from that family of traveling players. His tone was contemptuous, and a flicker of displeasure immediately crossed Shen Jiannan's face. Mrs. Shen also let out a sigh. Jiannan, it's not that your father and I don't approve of you too, it's just that Chen Wan, after all, isn't from a proper family. Upon hearing this, Shen Jiannan felt his pride wounded and his resentment towards me grew even stronger. It wasn't until I took the initiative to interrupt and speak up. No, uncle, auntie, I've come this time to call off the engagement. Call off the engagement, child. You've finally come to visit, and now you want to break it off. Mrs. Shen was taken aback and immediately asked with concern, have we been poor hosts in some way? Mr. Shen, however, fixed his gaze directly on Shen Jiannan, his tone severe. Was it you who just bullied Zhou Yao? Before I could even get a word out, Mr. Shen continued to berate me angrily. You ungrateful wretch, your uncle Zhou and I go way back. If he hadn't taken a bullet for me on the battlefield all those years ago, do you think you'd be sitting here stuffing your face like a proper person? That's a life debt, a debt that must be repaid, understand. Zhou Yao came all this way, and this is how you repay the favor on my behalf. Having served in the military in his youth, Father Shen has a rather fiery temper, which is hardly surprising, yet, the genuine emotion in his eyes moves me deeply, even as it fills me with a sense of helplessness. It's precisely this feeling that has made me want to avoid seeing them in this life, in my past life. It was Father and Mother Shen who constantly shielded me. Their protection was the only respite I had during my 20-year, mutually torturous marriage to Shen Jiannan. Their kindness towards me was such that calling them my benefactors would be no exaggeration. I'm always afraid that if I see them again, I might not have the heart to walk away. Cat got your tongue, nothing more to say, is that it? Under his father's relentless questioning, Shen Jiannan's jaw muscles tensed and relaxed repeatedly. He deliberated for a long moment before finally speaking. You want to repay a debt of gratitude, but does that mean you have to sacrifice my entire life for it? What am I to you? Some object belonging to you and my mother, to be married off to whomever you decide. Are you trying to be the death of me? Mr. Shen slammed the table and stood up, his face flushed with anger, seeing the situation turn sour. I rose to my feet and spoke up at the right moment. Uncle, please calm down. Even if you feel indebted, the debt isn't so grave that it must be repaid with a marriage. In an instant, all eyes at the dinner table were on me. I took a deep breath and continued. Besides, when my father saved you back then, he never expected anything in return, so now, I beg you to grant my request and let me call off this engagement. As soon as the words were spoken, Shen Jiannan, who was standing nearby, chimed in. Exactly, father, mother, I simply don't have feelings for her. you can't force affection. Everyone believes in free love these days. Arranged marriages are a thing of the past. Mr. Shin's gaze shifted between me and Jiannan. Sensing my resolve and his son's opposition, he let out a heavy sigh. Fine, I give up on trying to control you. Mr. Shin slumped back into his chair, fuming with anger. Mrs. Shin wore a worried expression but did not intervene. She simply instructed a servant to fetch their copy of the marriage contract. Afterwards, Mrs. Shen and I took the marriage contract and destroyed it on the spot. I watched the red paper turn to ash and let out a deep sigh of relief. From now on, I am finally free of any ties to Shin Jiannan. Shin Jiannan was also staring at the marriage certificate, lost in thought, when he snapped out of it and looked at me. His gaze was intense and heavy, but when I looked again in confusion, it had shifted back to the familiar look of contempt. Even though the marriage certificate is gone, Xiaoyao, your aunt truly likes you. Why not stay in the capital a few more days? Consider it your uncle and I showing you some hospitality. Out of a sense of guilt, Mrs. Shen insisted on having me stay as a guest. Before I could even voice a polite refusal, Mr. Shen nodded in agreement. His tone, having cooled from his earlier anger, was tinged with resignation. Let Jiannan show you a good time before you head back. That way, your old rascal of a father can't accuse me of mistreating his daughter. Shin Jiannan wasn't too keen on the idea at first, but seeing his parents had already conceded ground over the betrothal agreement, he reluctantly agreed in the end. Seeing this, I couldn't very well object. After the meal, I was engrossed in watching the forget-me-nots in the little garden when Shin Jiannan found me first and spoke with a menacing tone. Zhou Yao, I'm warning you not to get any ideas about me. What on earth are you talking about? The evening breeze was cool. I was almost greedily savoring the leisure of youth, free from the torment of illness, when Shin Jiannan's interruption prompted me to retort with a hint of impatience. Ideas. I reached out and gently stroked the flower, then stood up, looking coldly at Shin Jiannan as I spoke with contempt. You. Shin Jiannan tried to say more, but I simply turned and walked away. There was no point in wasting another word. From that day on, I stayed at the Shin residence. My parents aren't particularly concerned about the engagement. They simply believe that if I like the person, I should get to know them, and if I don't, I should call it off. Sending me to the capital was also a way to broaden my horizons. Nevertheless, I plan to write to them about breaking off the engagement and to let them know I'm safe, so they won't worry. Since I was using the Shin family's study, Shin Jiannan saw me writing as soon as he entered and immediately scoffed. Well, you never even went to college, and you know how to write. I didn't say a word, just kept writing the letter with my fountain pen. Shin Jiannan, having been left hanging, moved closer for a look. He immediately recognized the handwriting style his mother often used, his tone laced with suspicion. Song typeface, where did you learn that? How is it exactly like my mother's handwriting? You're really playing the long game, aren't you? You learned this on purpose to win my mother's favor, didn't you? I couldn't be bothered with him. I had no desire to explain a single word. The characters are indeed in Song typeface, and it does have to do with Mother Shen. It's just that she taught me in my past life. There's no need to mention this to Shin Jiannan, seeing that I remained silent and that I was merely writing a family letter. Shin Jiannan had no grounds to pick a fight. After lingering for a moment, he snorted and left. I wrote 2 full pages with great flourish. When Father Shen and Shin Jiannan entered and saw it, they immediately praised it. Xiaoyao, your handwriting is quite good. It actually reminds me of your aunt's. No sooner had he spoken these words than Shin Jiannan's face darkened, ready with a sarcastic retort, but then, old Master Shin suddenly flushed a deep crimson, taking several sharp, wheezing breaths as if he couldn't catch his breath. Father, Shin Jiannan was startled, immediately rushing forward in a panic to massage his father's chest. I was momentarily stunned, then immediately realized it was an old war injury of old man Shin's flaring up. He had damaged his trachea years ago during germ warfare. I quickly stepped forward and pressed several acupoints on old man Shin, then spoke urgently to Shin Jiannan. Shin Jiannan, go get a prescription filled right away. Exactly as I say, 3 liang each of ephedra herb, white peony root, dried ginger, and pinelia tuber, and 2 liang each of dragon's tail and chisander fruit. Shin Jiannan froze for a second, then furrowed his brow. It took Mr. Shin a moment to recover, though his face was still pale. He had genuinely passed the critical stage. He looked at me with newfound respect for the acupressure points I had pressed and the herbal prescription I had suggested. Xiaoyao, you know traditional Chinese medicine too. that's incredible. To that, I could only give an evasive reply, not at all, uncle. It's just some unconventional methods and folk remedies taught to me in my childhood by an itinerant old Chinese doctor who happened to pass by our home, actually. This knowledge came from my previous life, after over a decade of marriage to Xin Jiannan. During a period of rapid medical advancement, the chief physician at the province's best hospital told this to me and Mother Shen, after we had consulted numerous renowned doctors. In that past life, this very prescription did indeed prevent uncle's illness from recurring. Hearing this, Xin Jiannan, standing nearby, let out another cold sneer. Zhou Yao, I never expected you to be so thoroughly prepared. Even factoring in my father's illness, so what was all that before? Playing hard to get? I didn't respond. Mr. Shen turned his head and snapped angrily, you little brat, stop stirring up trouble here. If you're really that bored, go and prepare the prescription Xiao Yao just mentioned for me. Father, why are you always taking her side? Xin Jiannan was seething with resentment, and the father and son parted on bad terms, knowing it was pointless to stay any longer. I began to think about where to go next. I couldn't help but consider heading south to try my hand at business. That very afternoon, I went to a newsstand to buy newspapers about the southern reforms. Just as I suspected, the country was still deciding which city would host the new special economic zone. The entire southern economy was in a state of revival, brimming with opportunities. My heart pounded in my chest as I felt a long-lost thrill, the joy of being able to shape my own destiny. I was completely absorbed in the newspaper when an unfriendly voice jolted me from my thoughts. As luck would have it, it was Chen Wan and Xin Jiannan. Chen Wan was wearing a little Western-style dress, all dolled up, while Xin Jiannan's dark gray suit made him appear even more tall and straight. I gave them a cold glance, thinking to myself that the two of them were indeed a perfect match. It seems Chen Wan has already figured out who I am and is now venting her jealousy to Xin Jiannan. Jiannan, what does she mean by this? Is she trying to shamelessly move into your house first, just because she used to be your fiancé? If her retreat to advance tactic actually works, what am I supposed to do? Seeing this, Xin Jiannan quickly pulled her into his arms to comfort her. Wanner, why bother stooping to the level of someone like her, who's just trying to climb the social ladder? Besides, I will never give in to her wishes. I will only marry one woman in my life. He had just finished saying that with such conviction, then turned his head and saw me. His steps faltered, and a flicker of discomfort instantly crossed his face. Zhou Yao, what are you doing here? Chen Wan had just been talking about me, and upon turning around and running into me, she immediately adopted a sarcastic, insinuating tone. Well, if it isn't Jiannan's cousin, you're Zhou Yao, right? Let me tell you. You're nothing but a social climbing gold digger trying to use the Shen family to change your pathetic fate. I suggest you give up on that ridiculous idea right now. To that, I simply offered a cold denial. You're overthinking it. The Xin Jiannan you see as a prize is nothing to me. At those words, the expressions on both their faces shifted. A flicker of humiliation crossed Xin Jiannan's face before it turned cold. After a moment of stunned silence, Chen Wan spoke with disdain. Oh really? Then why were you following us? Out of all these streets, what are the odds we'd run into you here? She's asking me. I'm the one who wants answers from them. If I'd known I'd run into those two here, I would have taken the long way to a different newsstand. I ignored them and simply picked up the newspaper to ask its price. Xin Jiannan saw that the cover of the newspaper I bought was about Southern development and sneered once more. Zhou Wan, you can barely read a few characters. What are you putting on airs for? You know my parents are in business, so you're trying to find common ground with them, is that it? You're trying a bit too hard. He thought I was reading the paper just to curry favor with his parents. I took a deep breath, feeling thoroughly annoyed by his incessant pestering. Xin Jiannan, that's enough. I'll be gone in a couple of days, and I won't bother you and Chen Wan anymore. Can't you just get out of my sight? Chen Wan let out a scornful laugh. Gone in a couple of days? I don't believe for a second you'd give up this life of luxury so easily. Xin Jiannan's face darkened immediately. Zhou Yao, the sight of a gold digger like you clinging on for money makes me sick. I slammed the newspaper down on the table with a sharp crack, turning my head to deliver a scathing rebuke. You're disgusted. Who the hell do you think you are to be disgusted by me, young Master Shen? Need I remind you, it's you people who are pestering me. I'm not the one following you around. After saying that, I turned to Chen Wan. What did you just call me? A pheasant? Then what does that make you now? A pheasant who got here a few days earlier and put on some phoenix feathers. Chen Wan, you know perfectly well what's on your mind. I tore into Chinwan without mercy, shredding her reputation to pieces. How can you say that about me? Jiannan and I are truly in love. With her eyes reddening, Chinwan immediately put on a show, covering her face as she turned to leave. Jiannan, however, suddenly grew anxious. He chased after her, pulled her back, and began murmuring words of comfort. Alright, Wanner, don't be in such a hurry to leave, no one misses you that much. I twitched the corner of my mouth and was just about to say more when Jiannan, without a moment's hesitation, punched me. Who said you could talk about Wano like that? Instantly, a sharp pain shot through the center of my face, and I lost my balance, stumbling backward. The next moment, a pair of strong arms caught me. Jiannan, is this any way to treat a lady? A low voice sounded by my ear. I stood there dazed, clutching my nose, until something soft pressed against the bleeding spot. A handkerchief. Thank you. I murmured the words, then looked up to meet a pair of concerned eyes. He was exceptionally tall, with a sharply defined face that radiated an air of crisp efficiency. The face looked strangely familiar. Just as I was racking my brain to place it, Jiannan gave me the answer. Liang Jun, what are you doing here? In an instant, he reacted as if his tail had been stepped on, his whole body bristling with tension. It just came back to me. Liang Jun and Jiannan are both second-generation heirs. Their fathers both transitioned from military careers to business and hold significant sway in the industry. In my past life, the Liang and Shen families were constantly at odds over business conflicts, tripping each other up both openly and behind the scenes, so naturally, the two of them don't get along now either. Liang Jun was currently using a handkerchief to gently press against the cut to stop the bleeding. Before he could even respond, I suddenly snapped back to reality. Feeling inexplicably embarrassed, I took the handkerchief from him and thanked him again. Seeing this, he finally turned his head and sneered at Jiannan. Jiannan, you really are regressing, getting involved in women's squabbles, and hitting a woman. Are you even a man? His barrage of mockery was relentless, a full frontal assault from the moral high ground that completely overwhelmed Jiannan. Sure enough, his words drew pointed looks and hushed comments from passers-by. What are you doing? How dare you hit a woman? This is outrageous. Morals are decaying and people's hearts are no longer what they used to be. How can a man hit a woman? He's utterly pathetic. Jiannan, stung by their words and feeling his pride wounded, gritted his teeth and turned to address Liang Jun. What I do is none of your business. Zhou Yao, let's go. As he said this, he tried to pull me away, but I shook him off without a second thought. That won't be necessary. Young Master Shen, be sure to tell your parents I've left, so you won't think I'm freeloading off your family. Seeing this, Chinwan sized up Liang Jun and immediately started fanning the flames. No wonder you turned down the Shen family. You've already latched onto someone else. Jiannan's expression darkened further. It took him a long moment to rein in his temper before his tone softened. You should at least let me take you to get your injuries treated. To this, I merely responded with a cold stare, while Liang Jun's expression grew even more mocking. Well, Master Shen, changing your tune that fast, you just finished beating someone up and now you want to take them to get patched up. Not even a single apology. Jiannan's fists clenched with an audible crack. Seeing the situation turning sour, Chinwan quickly pretended to be in distress. Jiannan, I have such a terrible headache. Could you take me to the clinic, please? Jiannan gave us a long, hard look before finally agreeing, though it was clear he did so with great reluctance. I saw it clearly. It was only because Chinwan saved his face that he was able to leave with an excuse. As they walked away, a chorus of jeers and sneers rose around them. Looking at the two of them, I could only wish them a long and happy life together, so I wouldn't have to suffer their fallout again. Just then, Liang Jun, who was standing behind me, suddenly spoke up. His tone full of concern for me. Your surname is Zhou. We haven't been properly introduced. My name is Liang Jun. I could tell he wanted to chat a bit longer, but I just felt awkward and wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. My apologies, Mr. Liang. I have some matters to attend to over there, so I must take my leave. I'll thank you properly next time. After offering my apology, I returned to the Shen residence. I was packing my things when Jiannan kicked the door open and stormed in. Zhou Yao, you made me lose so much face in public today. That was completely out of line. I kept packing, turning my head to give him a cool, indifferent look before retorting. Oh, really, Jiannan, and what about you? Weren't you out of line? Jiannan caught sight of the bruise on my face, and a flicker of shame crossed his expression. I I was just so furious. You had no right to speak to Chinwan like that. Seeing that he still chose to side with Chinwan, I lost all desire to continue talking to him and just went back to packing my things. Are you deaf or something? I'm talking to you. After getting no response from me several times, Shin Jiannan grew impatient and, in a fit of anger, actually knocked over my suitcase. Bang! I glared at my luggage on the ground, then looked up at Shin Jiannan with a fierce stare. What the hell do you want? Seeing that I had finally responded, Shin Jiannan lifted his chin with an arrogant tilt. What do you want? You must apologize to Chinwan. I refused without hesitation. No way, in your dreams. Shin Jiannan's eyes widened slightly, and he immediately launched into a tirade of accusations. Zhou Yao, don't you dare push your luck. You've been living off our Shin family here in the capital all this time. Don't be so ungrateful. I shot back without hesitation. Rely on the Shin family. If I were to rely on anyone, it would be your parents. Have you, Shin Jiannan, ever spent a single cent on me? Shin Jiannan's face flushed with embarrassment at my words, and he couldn't help but try to defend himself. All of this will be mine sooner or later. You must apologize to Chinwan. But before he could finish speaking, his father, Mr. Shin, walked in and began to reprimand him. The Shin family is yours now. You unfilial wretch, are you that eager for me to die, Mrs. Shin entered the room shortly after, her face also full of reproach. Jiannan, your father and I have heard about what happened today. You really shouldn't have. Mr. Shin, for his part, was absolutely furious about Shin Jiannan's actions. How did the Shin family produce a pathetic coward who hits women like you? Upon hearing this, Shin Jiannan stiffened his neck, his face flushed red as he tried to justify himself. If Zhou Yao hadn't provoked me, why would I have treated her like that? Besides, I only gave her a little nudge. How does that make me a woman beater? Old Mr. Shin stared at him for a long moment, then sighed with the deep disappointment of a father whose son has failed to live up to his hopes. All talk and no backbone. Fine. Shin Jiannan, you're something else, Mrs. Shin's face was also etched with disappointment, clearly furious. How can your father and I possibly entrust the Shin family to you when you act like this? Shin Jiannan failed to see his parents' well-intentioned concern and retorted directly, you only have one son, me, you can't just abandon me. Are you trying to be the death of me? At those words, Mr. Shin took a sharp breath and looked on the verge of an attack. I quickly helped Mrs. Shin calm him down. Once Mr. Shin had recovered a bit, I made my intention to leave clear. Uncle, Auntie, I've been a bother these past few days. I'll be leaving the capital this afternoon. Seeing my unwavering resolve, the Shin family parents had no choice but to finally agree, and they even gave me money for the journey. Thank you, Uncle, Auntie. I murmured my thanks, gave them one last, deep look, and then picked up my suitcase. I had no idea when, or if, I would ever see them again. Shin Jiannan stood there in a daze for a long moment, as if finally realizing I was truly leaving, and murmured, Zhou Yao, are you really leaving? To this, I just let out a cold laugh. What else, Shin Jiannan, let's never see each other again. After saying that, I picked up my suitcase, turned, and walked away, but the moment I stepped out of the Shin family's Western-style house, Shin Jiannan came chasing after me. Zhou Yao, wait. He grabbed my suitcase, gasping for breath as he spoke. You can't leave. I stared at him, utterly bewildered, convinced he'd lost his mind. Not leaving. Weren't you the one who couldn't wait for me to go? Having second thoughts now, Shin Jiannan stared at me for a long moment before hesitantly finding his words. My father can't do without your massages when his condition flares up, and my mother needs your company too. The Shin family needs you. Looking at him, I recalled the way he had looked at me while I was massaging his father. A chill ran through me, and I asked a question that seemed to come out of nowhere. You've been reborn? Shin Jiannan was taken aback. After a long pause, he gave a slight nod. Yes. In that instant, a chill ran through my entire body. I had already begun to suspect something from the concern he had shown for Chinwan earlier. Back then, I had angered Chinwan so much that when she turned to cross the street, Shin Jiannan pulled her back without a moment's hesitation. I had only seen that kind of cherished, tender look in his eyes in my past life. Asking him about it now was just to confirm, since I had been reborn, there was nothing more to say. I took a deep breath, feeling nothing but exhaustion. Shin Jiannan, Chinwan can learn how to take care of your parents too. If you don't love me, why are you clinging to me? We've both been given a second chance at life now. Can't you just let me go? Shin Jiannan was taken aback for a moment, then shook his head. I just think Wonner is a bit spoiled and not very good at looking after others. She probably wouldn't handle these things as well as you. Zhou Yao, what if I acknowledge you as my sworn sister? From now on, you can be an adopted daughter of the Shin family. He was even willing to go that far, to tie me to this place for the rest of my life. I scoffed inwardly, dismissing it with contempt. No, I don't want it. You can give it to whoever you like. From now on, you go your way, and I'll go mine. After saying that, I turned and left the Shin residence, heading straight for the train station. To my surprise, I ran into Liang Jun there, who was also preparing to head south. After we spoke, I was quite taken aback. You're heading south too? Liang Jun was pleasantly surprised to see me, then nodded with a smile. That's right. My father says there are business opportunities in the south and wants me to go try my luck. His family's business acumen really is something else. I couldn't help but feel a bit impressed. I was just about to say more when a voice in the distance cut me off. Well, Zhou Yao, so that's why you turned me down. You already had someone else lined up. Shin Jiannan, having rushed over looking travel-worn and weary, stared at us standing side by side, his eyes reddening, right there in front of everyone. I slapped him across the face. You hit me. Shin Jiannan looked utterly taken aback. For a moment, I could see the fury flash in his eyes, but he forcibly reined it in. He shot a fierce glare at Liang Jun, then grabbed my arm and pulled me away, out of his sight. Zhou Yao, if you're willing to stay, I can let bygones be bygones for what you did to Chenwan, even trying to kill me. We can pretend it never happened. Can't we just treat it all as a bad dream? As he walked, he lectured me with an air of feigned earnestness. I, however, shook off his hand and let out a cold laugh. Shin Jiannan, Chenwan's business had nothing to do with me in the first place, and as for trying to kill you in that hospital bed, that was only because you were about to pull my oxygen tube. You brought that on yourself. So what's all this about you not blaming me? Shin Jiannan furrowed his brow, seeming utterly unable to comprehend my words. Anyway, just come back with me today, and we can figure everything else out later. Alright, damn it. How many times do I have to say it? We're through. As they struggled, quite a few people in the vicinity turned to look. Suddenly, a shrill woman's voice pierced through the crowd. Shin Jiannan, I knew you never gave up on that bitch. I turned my head slightly and met Chenwan's eyes, burning with resentment and jealousy. She lunged forward and began clawing at me. You bitch, who said you could seduce him? Jiannan is mine. I stumbled backward, and the next moment, Shin Jiannan had seized Chenwan by the wrist, restraining her. Wonner, don't be rash, let me explain. Chenwan struggled for a long moment before finally looking at him with tear-filled eyes. Jiannan, are you leaving me? Shin Jiannan broke out in a cold sweat, unable to explain his rebirth to Chenwan. He could only stammer after a long silence. I'm not trying to marry Zhou Yao. It's just, she knows how to treat my father's illness, and she knows how to make my mother happy. I just want her to stay and take care of my parents. That excuse is pretty flimsy. And Chenwan doesn't buy it for a second. You have other intentions for Zhou Yao, don't you? You want to marry me, but keep her on the side. Shin Jiannan, what era do you think this is? The days of having a wife and a concubine are long gone. Why won't you just listen to me? Shin Jiannan was left speechless, unable to explain himself no matter what he said. As the stalemate dragged on, Liang Jun, who had been listening from the sidelines, stepped in at just the right moment to bail me out. Shin Jiannan, what gives you the right to ask someone else to take care of your parents for you? If you're trying to have your cake and eat it too, just say so. With his words, he deliberately mocked Shin Jiannan for his pie-in-the-sky thinking, aiming to drive a wedge between him and Chenwan. Sure enough, Chenwan blew her top the moment she heard it. She grabbed Shin Jiannan by the collar and demanded an explanation. Liang Jun and I seized the opportunity and quickly boarded the southbound train. With a blast of its whistle, the train bid farewell to everything in the capital. Thank you, Liang Jun. On the train, I whispered my thanks. He blinked and chuckled softly. You're welcome, just doing my part. After we reached our destination, we parted ways, wishing each other a prosperous and successful future. The period that followed was both busy and fulfilling. I seized the right opportunity at the right time, and my small business quickly took off and began to take shape. Concerned for the health of Mr. and Mrs. Shen, I ultimately wrote down some care instructions and mailed them to their home, but instead of a reply, I was met by Shin Jiannan, who arrived looking weary from his journey. What are you doing here? Shin Jiannan, Do you not understand plain English, or what? I looked at Xin Jiannan and voiced my utter annoyance, yet he wore an ingratiating smile on his face. Zhou Yao, my parents miss you terribly and would like you to come back for a visit. It's been years, after all. Think of it as catching up. Seeing his demeanor, I flat out refused and questioned the truth of his excuse. If you're going to lie, at least come up with a better story. I spent far more time with them and took care of them in our past life than you ever did. What's the real reason? Seeing there was no other way out, Xin Jiannan finally came clean. It's that my parents' health is failing, I exclaimed in disbelief. How could that be? Didn't I send a letter before the new year? By my reckoning, your mother's rheumatism should be acting up soon. And your father's bronchitis needs a new herbal prescription. I wrote all of that in the letter, didn't I? A flicker of discomfort crossed Xin Jiannan's face before he began to stammer. The letter, I did receive it, but before I could read more than a few lines, Qianwan snatched it away and tore it up. It dawned on me immediately. It was all about jealousy and resentment. When Qianwan came up in conversation, Xin Jiannan became more talkative, his words brimming with dissatisfaction toward her. Zhou Yao, I only realize now how wonderful you are. Qianwan, she's utterly useless. Every time my father has an episode, all she does is cry and has no idea what to do. My mother doesn't like her either. She even went back to my grandmother's old house for a while just to get some peace and quiet. What kind of life is this, I ask you? I've realized Qianwan is only good for romance, not for real life. As he said this, he looked at me with complete sincerity. My parents are part of the reason I'm asking you to come back. They truly miss you. Though I missed his parents too, I knew the course of this life was different. I couldn't repeat the same mistakes, so I firmly refused. Xin Jiannan, I can't go back with you. Our fate in this lifetime is over. But if he wants those medicinal formulas, I can write them out again. Xin Jiannan looked at me deeply for a long moment, his eyes growing slightly red. In the end, he had no choice but to agree. But as I was writing, a woman suddenly lunged forward, tore up the letter once more, and began shouting curses. Well, Xin Jiannan, I knew there was a reason you hadn't come home for days. You came all the way down south to find this bitch. You never really cut ties with her, did you? Qianwan glared at us, her eyes blazing with jealousy and resentment. A vein throbbed on Xin Jiannan's forehead as he explained through gritted teeth. Qianwan, would you please stop making a scene? I'm here to get the prescription. Even with Xin Jiannan stating his purpose, Qianwan remained unconvinced. Who do you think you're fooling? Any doctor could write a prescription. Why on earth would we need to go to that wretched woman? Her incessant, unreasonable pestering finally pushed Xin Jiannan past his breaking point for the first time, and he slapped her across the face. Shut up. When are you going to stop? Struck. Qianwan's face was a mask of utter disbelief. How could you hit me, Xin Jiannan? I will never forgive you for this. Qianwan's tears welled up and spilled over. She covered her face and fled once more. Watching the cars speeding past on the road, my heart sank. I was just about to call out a warning when disaster struck. Bang! With a tremendous crash, Qianwan's body was flung several meters away by the truck. Like a kite with its string cut, blood seeped from her lifeless form. Wanner. Xin Jiannan stood frozen for a long moment before letting out a howl and lunging forward. I, however, slipped away in the chaos, terrified that he would go mad and pin the blame on me again, repeating the tragedy of my past life. But I had clearly underestimated Xin Jiannan's ability to track someone down. Within a few days, he showed up at my door looking utterly haggard, offering a tearful and genuinely heartfelt apology. I'm sorry, Zhou Yao, I misunderstood you. I was wrong in our past life too. I'm the one who ruined everything. It's all my fault. This time, he didn't blame me. Instead, he calmly accepted Qianwan's death. I'm begging you, please come back with me. I promise I'll treat you twice as well. Looking at his pleading face, I still refused. Xin Jiannan, how many times do I have to say it? We were over a long time ago. Our fate has run its course. Tears still streaked Xin Jiannan's face as he looked at me, utterly heartbroken. What's going on? Do we have a guest? Just then, Liang Jun appeared from behind and wrapped his arm around me in a very affectionate manner. Xiao Yao, what took you so long? I was stunned for a moment before immediately realizing he was pretending to be my boyfriend to get me out of a tight spot, and I promptly hugged him back. It's almost over. Go back and wait for me. Xin Jiannan looked at Liang Jun, then at me, though startled. It was not entirely unexpected. In the end, he left, his face etched with utter dejection. Not long after, while I was on a supply run, I received the news of his suicide. tinged with a sense of regret. Shin Jiannan left me a suicide note. In it, he expressed a wish to be reborn, to change the past, and to be with me again. I felt nothing. Even if he were reborn, he wouldn't be in my timeline, and the person he'd find might not even be me anymore. After writing a letter of condolence to Mr. and Mrs. Shen, I went back to restocking my inventory. Liang Jun was waiting for me at the intersection ahead, arms crossed with a knowing, half-smile. Miss Zhou, care to turn our little act into something real? I raised a brow, studied him for a moment, then let out a soft, derisive chuckle. Sure, let's see what you've got. Liang Jun was taken aback by my smiling face, then spoke in a low, serious tone. Zhou Yao, I'll be good to you for the rest of my life. In his eyes was a resolve I had never seen in Shin Jiannan's. Seeing this, the corners of my mouth lifted into a smile. All right, come give me a hand, help me with the stock. And so, everything was settled. That's all for today's story. If you've made it this far, please leave a comment saying happy every day. We at Wakewang wish you happiness each and every day.